Hey there, Otaku Goblins. This is the Goblin King. It's Thursday and you know what that means. Well, close, and I wish, but no. It's another anime review. Now you can make an Ahegal face, if you feel the urge, I mean. Personally, it does nothing for me. I like the idea of it, or what it represents, but when girls do it for real, it legit looks fucking stupid. For real. Stop it. So this week's anime is still from last season, and we all know by now, I think. So I'm not going to rehash that. Though I've been reading the My Dress Up Darling manga, and I legit can't wait to watch the anime and see how it stacks up. I really like Kirigawa. So far, I can't figure out whether I like Gojo or if he's just one of those standard male characters that's a bitch. I mean, I don't mind a dude who might get a little worked up over some underboob or whatever, but that fucking overreaction every time. So I can't tell right now if he's ultra straight-laced or a chode. So, speaking of dudes that are cool, even under intense pressure, tonight I'm reviewing an anime whose shortened title is Banished from the Hero's Party. Yes, it was based on a light novel originally, so its title is an entire book by itself. Alright, so what's this anime about? Well, if you saw that title, you probably have a good idea already. Now, this anime was billed as a sort of slice-of-life romance, which neither of those are genres I really go for too often, as we all know by now, I think. Especially not that into romance stuff, though after reading the initial premise, I figured I'd give it a shot. I still have at least another couple weeks until this season's anime are finished after all. So this one centers around a dude named Gideon. Now, Gideon was originally a member of the hero's party who was supposed to take on and slay the obligatory demon lord and save the world. Well, when he's straight up told by the party's resident mage that he's dead weight and they'd be better off without him, he decides to leave the party and make his life elsewhere. He makes his way to the frontier town of Zoltan, and changes his name to Red and begins his life as a small-town apothecary. However, his new quiet life is quickly turned upside down when a beautiful adventurer from his past, Reed, shows up and decides that she's going to live with him. Yeah, that last bit there is a bit hyperbolic, to be completely honest. I mean, this thing is billed as a romance story after all, and you can't have the romance without the obligatory love interest, right? So, let me tell you a bit about the characters, and then I'll go into some of the stuff that I liked, and some of the stuff that I wasn't that into. Like usual. First off, Red isn't much like many of the main characters of the anime that I generally watch. Since much of what I watch are comedies, most of the main protagonists tend to fall into either that goofy-ass mold that I kind of like, or they're the little bitch types where the comedy is supposed to come from their situations surrounding the opposite sex. Obviously, since this isn't a strict comedy, though there are some comedic elements to it that I enjoyed, Red doesn't really fall into one of those camps. He has to be able to actually be attractive to a woman, and not in some inexplicable way that has you scratching your head in bewilderment at why these hot-ass women are leaving snail trails all over this bitch-made motherfucker. Red himself is actually quite capable and cool. He's level-headed, calm, and collected. He knows what he's doing, or can at least figure his way out of most situations. Plus, he can actually handle himself in a scrap. He does get a little flustered around Rit at first, but nothing along the lines of the exaggerated shit I'm used to seeing. Rit is also a pretty good character. She was the princess of a duchy who also happened to moonlight as an adventurer due to her blessing. I'll get into what that is in a minute. She has a rather cute personality, though she's definitely not someone you want to piss off because she's also more than capable of taking care of herself. A lot of the comedic stuff and more familiar anime tropes, like chibi style, came from her end of things, usually due to her emotional reactions to something that Red would do or say. Riku is Red's younger sister and the eponymous hero. Due to bearing the mantle of the hero for her entire life, Ritu's emotions and her social skills are incredibly stunted, like to autistic levels. And I guess it's sort of a good time to talk a little about these so-called blessings. Alright, so apparently the world's god bestows some form of dubious blessing upon every single being at the moment of their birth. These blessings bestow the population with skills and abilities that allow them to more fully embody whatever blessing they may have. For instance, the most common form of blessing is the warrior blessing, and seems to allow people to lead relatively simple lives if they so choose. Then you have less common ones, such as the weapons master, the spirit scout, or the bar brawler. These have relatively specific skills and abilities, it seems, that seem to affect those blessed in different ways. The bar brawler, for instance, will be influenced by their blessing to use violence to overcome any obstacle. whereas the Spirit Scout craves freedom and open spaces. Ritu's mantle of hero suppresses anything which might cause her pain or discomfort or otherwise hinder her ability to be the hero, such as needing to eat, drink, or sleep, or being harmed by extremes of heat or cold. However, it goes even further to suppress her emotions and odd things, like her sense of taste. Anything which would cause her to deviate from her path as a hero is curtailed by the blessing itself. It also seems that the more unique or powerful the blessing is, the earlier it triggers in the bearer's life. Riku was influenced by her blessing to put herself in harm's way for others at the tender age of 5. It's funny because the more I think on this, the more interesting Riku seems to be to me. The only other major character of note is Ails. He would be the resident mage and second in command of the hero's party and the one responsible for banishing Red. Right from the start, this dude comes across as a total dick, and it just gets worse from there. Especially once you find out his true motivations and how far and how quickly the dude falls from grace. There are also a handful of other relatively notable characters and villains throughout the 13-episode run, as well as some decent side characters from the village or city or town of Zoltan that Red and Reed interact with on a nearly daily basis. I think the thing that really stood out to me for this anime was the sort of emotional payoff between Red and Reed. It starts to happen relatively quickly and just slowly progresses as the episodes move on. I'm speaking, of course, of their actual romantic relationship. That's not something that I get a lot of chance to see in the average anime that I watch. It's almost always a sort of will they won't they thing in those, like with Uzaki-chan. Of course, it's probably due to the fact that this one is billed as a romance and not a comedy. That could have something to do with it, I bet. The other thing that I liked about this one, of course, was the artwork. Though the character designs themselves lacked a lot of detail, I did generally like them and I positively adored the backgrounds. Those were always very well detailed and beautifully done. There were some comedic elements to the whole thing, generally in the interaction between Red and Reed, or Red and the other villagers, in regards to Reed. For instance, in the 3rd episode when Red and Reed go shopping for a bed for her. The dude who crafts all the furniture is a goblin and he's actually pretty cool. There's also a fun sequence in the 4th episode where the men are in a sauna. That one had me laughing pretty hard. One last thing that I thought was really interesting was the way a lot of backstory was filled in with flashback sequences. In general, it's always better from a storytelling standpoint to keep flashbacks to a minimum, as they can easily be overused and tropey. That being said, though, this one didn't really feel that way. They were nearly always couched at a really good moment where a character was telling a story to another character, or legit thinking about a similar incident. They never felt forced or overused to me. That could just be me, though. The thing that bugged me is the thing that almost always bugs me about these fantasy worlds in anime. That's the anachronisms that pop up from time to time. Almost always in something easily overlooked like clothing, but they still always bother me. This one was no exception. Again, almost always clothing styles or something similar. It's just really jarring to see villagers wearing things like tunics and breeches, and then have, say, a doctor wearing a frickin' lab coat and a tie. Like, why? Where the hell did that even come from? I need to know these things, damn it. Overall, the anime itself was pretty decent. It wasn't groundbreaking or anything like that. I liked the payoff between Red and Rit a lot. It was a little slow, I think, mostly due to it also being a slice of life and not an action-adventure story. Though the action that was there was pretty good and pretty brutal at times. The story was pretty good as well. I definitely give this one a recommend. Just remember the things I said here so you don't go on with a lot of unrealistic expectations. Otherwise, that's all I have for you on this one, Goblins. Let me know what you thought in the handy section down below. While you're down there, join the Viridian Horde by crushing those like and subscribe buttons. I appreciate it a lot. I'll see you all tomorrow with another pop culture anima. Maybe I'll see you in the chat for FNT. See you then. Lates.